Hey, this is Todd. I wanted to spend a moment and talk about how you, as a GM, can combat a skill check or attempt spam. Skill check or attempt spam, or I guess I should call it just skill attempt spam, is a situation you may run into at your table when multiple players will ask to take and then repeat skill checks. This might be a situation in which one PC tries to, say, check for secret doors. They roll and they get a low number. Maybe they roll a 1 or 2 or something that fails, and it's clearly a failure. And a second player will, having looked at that roll, or even if they haven't, when the negative result comes back, they say, oh, well, my character tries to check for secret doors. And then perhaps a third or fourth or fifth or all of them, one after another, do present a conga line of folks checking for secret doors. It's something that causes a lot of GMs issues because they feel like there is a potential challenge in discovering the secret door and that it is minimized by players just essentially just bull rushing it by just rolling until they've discovered it. If you give them enough tries, somebody's going to roll 20, 19, 18, or whatever it is, they're going to discover it, and that somehow is ruining the challenge. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't find that rolling dice is a particular challenge. It's a gate, right? You're gating it behind potentially an ability. You're certainly gating it behind luck, but I don't think it's really a test of skill. However, by the same token, it builds up a system, if you will, a style of play that is much like the single encounter adventuring day, where it's just allowing PCs this freedom to just maximize everything that they have a chance to do. It's not necessarily in the spirit of the game. Really want the spirit of the game. Somebody makes a choice, does a roll. Hey, it doesn't work. They go with those results. It creates a new reality in the moment, and they move on. Not that we're just going to keep hammering it until we're either absolutely sure that no better result exists, or until we can get the best results. Right? Is not seem to be in the spirit of the game. So how do we fix it? I'm going to go through a couple of options in short order to kind of give you some tools or some ideas, some inspiration perhaps, to what you can do if you find this is a problem or you think it might become a problem in your game. First thing is, I just want to stress this, players should not be asking for skill checks. What players should be doing is declaring and describing their actions. Once they have declared and described their actions, if those actions, you hear them as a GM, and you say, okay, I believe that in order for that to succeed or fail, we need to test a skill, then you ask to test it. Your players should not be saying, oh, I make a search check, or oh, I make a perception check, or oh, I do whatever, right? That should not be part of their vocabulary. And the earlier that you can kind of get this out of their standard operating procedure and into describe to me what your character does, and I will tell you what to roll, if anything, that's better. So first of all, that should be the thing. Hopefully. But I know it can be tough to get there. It can certainly be hard when you're finding players coming from all different backgrounds, all different levels of play. Some of them have been playing certain ways for a long time. It might be difficult or even impossible to get them out of that. But the more that you can, one, you're more in the fiction than trying to maximize your meta knowledge. Two, but it also pays off in the future for when people are trying to repeat an action. One thing you can ask a player to do is, if character A rifles through the desk and doesn't find the secret drawer, and character B says, well, I just want to do that too, ask them how they differentiate their actions from the first player. So the first player went and rifled through the desk and did a bunch of tapping and trying to sliding their hands around. That didn't do it. So now you're asking that second player, okay, well, if you're going to do that too, you have to do something a little bit different than that first PC did. We're not just going to keep repeating their actions. Build on that fiction. So he did that thing with his hands, didn't find anything. What do you do? Maybe they say, okay, well, I'm going to take my axe and just start hammering the desk until I destroy it, or until we find the secret compartment. Fair enough. And that would work. It would have some other drawbacks, but that would work. Or they could say, well, I have some kind of tool, crowbar or something I'm going to try to pop up, or I'm going to listen instead of just running my hands looking for seams, I'm going to tap and listen for hollow spaces. That's another option, right? But each one of those has a couple things. One, it forces the players to keep coming up with different ways to do it. If they can't come up with a different way to address the problem, then they don't have anything to add, and that other skill will just stand. Or they can keep building it up, which should hopefully inspire them to do creative things or take chances or use resources, which is always great, because in any kind of encounter, whether it's combat or whether it's just a room, you want to at least entice characters to try to use the resources they have. And if doing some mundane stuff doesn't work, then maybe that, maybe if they're really sure there's something in that desk, then maybe they go to the magic user and say, okay, what spells do you have to use? And that's perfectly fine as well. Another option you can do is roll behind the screen. And this is one that's going to work for some tables, might not work for others. Something, if you can get it in session 0, it's good. The idea is that if you're rolling perception, if you're rolling investigation, if you're rolling a lot of these different skills, the idea is as the player, you don't know whether you failed or whether there was nothing to find. Part of the idea, or part of the problem with repeating skills, is that the players are seeing the rolls. They're seeing that, okay, I know that I rolled a 2 and I don't have proficiency. I have a very low proficiency. Okay, I know that just failed. So the next player is going to say, okay, well, I'm just going to try to roll higher than that because I know he failed on the roll. Not because there's nothing there. I know he failed on the roll, so I'm going to do that. If you roll behind the screen, you remove that. They're not going to have an idea what the other player rolled, so they can't just base their decisions off of that meta knowledge of, okay, where they rolled low, so I'm just going to try to roll higher. And then if that person doesn't roll higher, the next player is, well, I'm going to try to roll higher than them. You can remove that. But you are taking the dice out of players' hands. Some players are okay with that. I've played play-by-post campaigns where the GM rolled everything, and I didn't mind it. I thought it was fine to move the game along, but I think some players are maybe going to be suspicious if the GM is rolling, because they might feel like that they're not necessarily getting a fair result, that the GM is then turning things to get the result that they want, versus something that, of course, as always, the GM can always float DCs up and down or whatever, but you feel like you have more control when you're rolling the die out in the open. You see the result of 20. You're almost daring the GM to say, okay, I rolled a 20 and you had me roll. So if it doesn't work, I'm going to be really suspicious. But if you're rolling behind the scene, you don't have that. But then there's that other suspicion of, okay, I can't be sure that I'm getting the credit that my character should be getting. So it's something that can work, but it might be very table dependent. Another thing that I've talked about in videos is using ticking clocks. Everything has a cost and a risk. And one of those costs that's easiest to quantify is time. So if player 1 goes and searches the desk, I would say in my game, okay, that's going to take you 10 minutes. They say, fine, we do that. Okay, fine. They roll low. Now the next player comes along, and now I might ask them, okay, how are you doing that differently than the other player? Okay, and that's also going to take you 10 minutes. They're fine. They're going to do their roll. That maybe their roll comes up low again. Third player, okay, how are you doing it? They're doing, okay, that's another 10 minutes. All those 10 minutes are going to add up, because I play a more or less an old school game, so I'm using random encounters. I'm using those kind of tools. So all those 10-minute increments, those are all exploration turns that they're marching towards random encounters. And they generally will know that. And so for them, they really know they're taking a risk by spending a half hour in this one room dealing with this one desk, not even whatever the rest of the room may have. Now they know that they are potentially drawing the attention of adversaries in this place, in this dangerous place, because they spent a lot of time on the desk. And that's fine with it. If they want to spend an hour or 2 hours and just verify with 100% certainty that a certain thing is so, I'm fine with that, because I have those ticking clocks in place. Random encounters at the minimum. There might be other ones. Maybe they're trying to chase somebody and they're trying to find out they went through a secret door somewhere. They don't know where. Every 10 minutes they waste is 10 minutes that person got away, and they may not even be sure that they came through that room. Maybe they did somewhere else. If you don't use random encounters, come up with some other ticking clocks. It could be environmental effects, sort of layer actions for a dungeon. What happens when so often in a dungeon, do the adversaries get harder? Do things get further? Do more doors lock? Do encounters become tougher as defenders realize that a party is there, because you can hear them hammering away at a desk trying to get it open in that room? Does that happen? Are they chasing somebody, and that creature has a chance to escape? Does something become harder to find? Is water or dangerous gases coming in from somewhere? If it's in an urban setting, is there a better chance that law enforcement, local guards are going to show up and they're trying to sneak in and do some kind of caper, sneaking in somewhere? So you have a lot of, obviously it's all going to be in the context of your adventure, of your campaign, but think about what kind of things are preventing these guys from taking all the time in the world and all the resources in the world to do it. If they have all that stuff, then you should really be thinking about why you're rolling in the first place. If there is no ticking clocks and there's no reason why they just can't sit there and spend as much time as they want with that desk in leisure, then think about why you're rolling. One thing you can do is you can use a roll not to judge success, but to judge the efficiency of that success. Let me give you an example. Let's say they're climbing a rope up a wall. So they've been able to get, a grappling hook and a rope up on the wall of a castle keep, something or other, and they're now climbing up. And it's a rope, they've tied knots in it. It's not something that's challenging to climb. But what might be a challenge is doing it quickly and efficiently, because they're trying to get up in between patrols. There's stuff going on. So it's not a matter of, can you physically get up the top of this castle wall? It might be how quickly, how silently, perhaps, can you do that? So maybe you have them make their climbing checks. If they succeed, you say, okay, it's 50 feet up, maybe too much, whatever, 50 feet, and it's going to take you X amount of minutes. If you go faster, if you succeed on your roll, then you will actually make it up quicker, and you're stealthy and you're quiet. If you fail your roll, you're going to be slower and more likely to make noise. That's a great way to use a roll. It's not penalizing people for being poor, because I think some things that sometimes we forget is that players may have made a lot of preparations exactly for the reason to avoid people who are poor at certain skills rolling against them. So they've gone through the trouble of tying knots in the rope and doing all the stuff to make sure that the rope is easy for everybody in the party to climb, and suddenly you're asking for a climb check. And if they miss it, they're just going to be frustrated, because it's like, man, we did everything in our power to make this a no-brainer, and you made us roll. But you could say, well, hey, they rolled a 2. You didn't fall, but you're just slow because you're not a good climber. The rope is a great aid, but it doesn't make you a better climber. It just makes it less dangerous or easier. But it's still, you're just lagging behind. And I think that's a fair use of a skill check. It doesn't punish them for being bad climbers, but it does add that context to it. If you're a bad climber, you're not good at climbing things, the rope isn't going to make you as fast and as efficient as people who are good at it. And you can use that for many things. It could be picking a lock. It could be finding that hidden drawer. Yeah, you could find it in 10 minutes, or it might take you an hour. How good are you at it? And what have you, what kind of actions are you using? And of course, when they're describing their actions, then make sure to take that into consideration. If they come up with a really great method for dissecting that desk to find the hidden drawer, lower the DC, give them a bump, give them an advantage if it's good, help them out. Show them that describing their actions, that taking steps has an appreciable effect on the result. And I think, looking at my notes here, I think that's about it. I'm sure there are other ones. Let me know in the show notes if your game and you have other ideas for how to minimize spamming of ability checks. I will say that I think it's a good policy to use multiples of these different techniques. I think they're all useful. I think always getting players to describe their actions is a positive thing, and it's useful. I think it enhances the game on every level, regardless of whether they're doing a skill check or not. I think asking players to differentiate what they do will make them think harder before they come to you about just spamming it. If I have to be creative with how I can address a problem differently than the guy who just went before me, that's nothing but a positive just for me, exercising my brain, exercising my imagination. And it's going to stop those really cheap attempts of, well, I just searched 2. Well, how do you search? They already did it this way. You show me how you're doing things a little bit differently. And if they can't, and they still just want to do something like, hey, I just want to repeat what that other person did, because there's some things there might only be one way to do, then you've got those ticking clocks. You say, okay, fair enough, but it took 20 minutes to search that. And if you want to be more careful and you want to be more whatever, then it's going to take you double that. So that's 40 minutes. So you will spend an hour in this room. Do you want to do that? If they do, so be it. If there's something there, maybe give it to them. Say, hey, if you're going to put in that much time, it's like the old, from 3rd edition, take 20. You want to take 20 and say, I'm going to take as much time as it takes to do that. That's fine. Then you get to roll those consequences out there and put those forward and say, great, you found the secret door, but he's got an hour head start. Now you got to come up with a way to catch up. But hopefully those are useful to you. Like I said, let me know if you have your own solutions that you've used in your games. Let me know if some of these appeal to you, and if you use them, let me know how they work out. And always, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to be notified when I drop more videos and more content here on YouTube. As usual, game on, and I will talk to you later.